Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to this performance management orientation session. My name is Luqman Rafiq and I have been in teaching profession for more than 13 years now. And over these past 13 plus years, what I have been doing is I've been teaching the different courses of ACCA, ICAW, ICMA, CIMA, and the ICAP, which is the local Pakistani qualification. So I've been teaching these 4 or 5 qualifications. And the different subjects that I have been teaching for the ACCA, that includes the performance management, the connected paper, the advanced performance management, the financial management, which is FM, and the advanced paper, which is AFM. And I teach SBR and I teach AAA. So I teach these papers for the ACCA qualification. Our agenda for today's session is to discuss about the performance management. So I'm going to discuss in detail what the performance management is all about and how exactly are we going to be taking you through this performance management syllabus. So that is something that we are going to discuss. I have in front of me the syllabus for the exam attempts from September 2022 to the June 2023 session. Now, what is this syllabus all about? What are the areas that are included in this PM performance management paper? So I'm going to discuss this in detail now when I'm going to take you through. First thing that you need to understand before we discuss further is the concept of performance management. That what exactly is performance management? So you know that whenever we have an organization which is formed, there's always a vision of the organization. What is the vision? The vision is the ultimate goal. The vision is the ultimate goal. It's an ultimate objective of an organization. That's what a vision is. And when we talk about the concept of mission, so the concept of mission actually is that how an entity will achieve its vision. So you've got one of them, which is the vision. You've got another thing which is called mission. Now, what is the difference between the vision and the mission? So vision is telling you the ultimate goal of the organization, whereas mission is telling you how you will achieve your vision. Like for example, your vision could be, I repeat, your vision could be to be a leading global organization. That's your vision. That's your ultimate objective. That's your ultimate goal. That's what you want to achieve as an organization for the long run. And when we talk about the mission is going to tell you how you will be able to achieve that vision, which is the mission generally tells you what we do, for whom, and at the same time how. So basically what happens is when we talk about the concept of mission, the mission actually tells you that what you will do, for whom you will do, and how you will do in order to make sure that the other person is able to achieve their vision. That's what you are going to do. Now let me just discuss further and let me take you through all this. How is this performance management connected to the vision and the mission statement? So the concept of performance management is that performance management is to ensure performance management is to ensure that an organization accomplishes its vision. What is performance management all about? It's actually to ensure that an organization is going to accomplish its vision. That is what performance management is all about. So when we talk about the concept of performance management, this paper is designed in such a manner that it is going to tell you the things that are needed for an organization to operate, the actions that an organization has to undertake, the activities that an organization has to undertake to make sure that it is able to accomplish its vision which is the ultimate goal, the ultimate objective of this specific organization. Now, so how exactly are we going to be achieving all this? So for that, let me just take you through. This performance management syllabus has got multiple things which are being covered up. And if I take you through the introduction of the syllabus, you would see that there are multiple areas. There are these main components of the syllabus which have been mentioned here through a diagram. And if you would look at a diagram, there are these 4 or 5 things that are important. And what are those 4 or 5 things which are important? One of them is the information, then the technology and the systems for organizational performance. So I'm going to discuss this in detail, but it is generally going to tell you what information you need as an organization to manage the performance. What IT systems do you need to implement in order to manage the performance? What technologies that you need to adopt, or what technologies that you can adopt in order to make sure that your organization is able to achieve its vision. That is something that we are going to discuss. If I move a bit forward and if I tell you further, so there is actually specialized cost and management accounting techniques also, which is part and parcel of this syllabus. Now, what is this specialized cost and management accounting technique? Let's have a discussion on this. When we talk about the specialized cost and management accounting techniques, so we have discussed absorption costing, we have discussed marginal costing, we have discussed process costing, we have discussed job costing, batch costing. There are different type of costings that you have already discussed at the basic costing cost accounting paper, which is the management accounting paper. Now here we are going to discuss advanced level techniques, which would include activity based costing, which would include the target costing, which would include the life cycle costing. So the different type of costings are going to be covered up in this area. So we are going to be discussing all this. Then there are different type of decision making techniques. What are those different type of decision making techniques? So when I talk about the concept of decision making techniques, as an organization, you got to take a lot of decisions. What are those decisions that you got to take? Your decisions could be about pricing. Your decisions could be about production. Your decisions could be about outsourcing. Your decisions could be about shutdown of a factory or of an operation or a discontinuation of a product. There could be different type of decisions that you would make as an organization. So what we are going to do is that we're going to be discussing all of this when we would discuss this area. Then there is this budgeting and control. So we would see that what are the different types of budgets, what are the different type of budgeting techniques, what are the different control techniques that are introduced, which is mainly the variance analysis. So we would see the methods of setting budgets. We would see how the variances are calculated. We would see how the variance analysis calculations are performed. So we're going to see all this. Plus, in addition to this, there's this performance measurement and control. Now, what exactly is this performance measurement? So we know that the name of this paper is performance management. There is something which is called performance measurement. Now, what is this performance measurement going to be? So when I talk about the performance measurement, it's actually about quantifying the performance. So I repeat, when we talk about the performance measurement, it's actually about quantifying the performance. What is it? It's actually about quantifying the performance, which is you quantify the performance. How do you quantify the performance? By the use of different ratios, by the use of different formula for measuring the performance. So you got to measure the performance, quantify the performance. So when you quantify the performance, so then you actually take corrective actions to improve that. Like for example, you have calculated the GP margin of the business. You know, in 2021 the GP margin was 20%, whereas in 2022 it has become 17%. So if this GP margin has declined from 20% to 17%, ultimately what is going to happen? This would actually mean that the performance of the organization has actually deteriorated. Now, if the performance of the organization has actually deteriorated, this is not a good sign. This is not something good. This is not something that an organization should be happy with. So what should an organization do for that? The organization should take the corrective actions. So we're going to discuss in this section, which is the performance measurement and control, that how exactly do we measure the performance and how do we take the corrective actions to make sure that the organization's performance doesn't deteriorate. How do we take the corrective actions to make sure that the organization's performance doesn't deteriorate. Lastly, there is this another area which is employability and technology skills. So you know this thing that all the ACCA papers are now computer-based examinations. So when they are computer-based examinations, what actually happens with respect to computer-based examinations is that you as a student need to learn the technique of handling the spreadsheets, handling the word processor document. Need to know that how do you actually write down the answer using these spreadsheet documents, using these word processing documents. So that is something that you got to learn. So when we talk about the employability and the technology skills, the employability and the technology skills would actually mean that you would be focusing upon these things. You would be focusing upon learning these aspects. And when you learn these aspects, that means you are getting work ready. That means you're getting work ready. So there is nothing that you specifically need to study when you go for this. It's just that you need to learn the techniques. The techniques of what? You got to learn the techniques of ensuring that your organization that you are able to implement the different type of techniques which are needed for the implementation of the spreadsheet and the use of the Word document. So that was a general thing that I did tell you. Now let's move a bit forward and let's have a bit of a discussion further. Now the next thing that is actually going to happen is I'm going to discuss a bit more detail about this syllabus. You could see section A, which is managing information, sources of information, information system, and data analytics. So if I could have a general discussion about this area of the syllabus, that what exactly is this area of the syllabus going to be. So just try to understand this thing. In order to manage the performance, you need to have information. Without having the information, you cannot manage the performance. You got to have the information before you can manage the performance. So how would you gather the information? How would you get the information? So you just make sure that the first thing is that what are the sources where we can get the information? What are the internal sources of information? What are the external sources of information? What are the sources that are reliable? What are the sources? What are the what are the qualities of a good information? So we're going to be discussing all of these things when we would be discussing this section. Plus, in addition to this, we would also be discussing that how do you manage the information? How do you capture it? How do you record it? Where do you keep it? How do you process it? Every single thing that we are going to be discussing with respect to information management. Then there are these information systems and data analytics. Now let me just give you a bit of a guidance about what this information system and data analytics are going to be. So when we are going to be talking about the information systems and the data analytics, so we're going to be discussing that what are the different types of information systems. What is an information system which is called the MIS, which is the Management Information System. What is ERP, which is Enterprise Resource Planning System. What is the DSS, which is the Decision Support System. What is the Executive Information System, which is the AIS. So we're going to be discussing all of these aspects when we would be talking about this specific aspect of the information systems. If I move a bit forward and if I talk further, there is also the data analytics. You know this thing that nowadays there is advancements, and the advancements have actually led to the creation of the tools, which is the business intelligence tool, which is also termed as the Power BI, the dashboard reporting. What is this dashboard reporting? What is this BI? So let me just give you a bit of an idea. What you do is that you report to the management. So when you report to the management, gone are the days when you would give long pieces of information with details and numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers. Gone are the days when you used to submit information like this. Now in the present day, in the modern day, what you do is that you create pie charts, you create graphs, you create bar charts, you create graphs, you create bar charts. So different type of things that you do. So data analytics is about the tools, the different types of tools that actually help you analyze the data, present the data, analyze the data, connect the data, draw the sources, create relationship amongst the data. So that's what the data analytics tools are going to be. So we're going to be discussing what data analytics is, how the information is managed, how the information is captured, what are the good sources of information, what are the bad sources of information. All of these things are going to be discussed. If I move a bit forward, there is this next area which is about the specialized cost and management accounting techniques. Now, what are these specialized cost and management accounting techniques? So when you do study at the MA, the management accounting level, you do study these techniques a bit, but you don't study these techniques in detail. Here, you're going to be studying these techniques in detail. You'd be having a look at these techniques, that what exactly are these techniques. So you would be having you'd be having a good look at these techniques. Now, what exactly are these techniques? So one of them is the activity-based costing. It's a method where what we do is that we absorb overheads on the basis of the different activities that an organization does. So the different type of activities that an organization does, what we do is that we actually absorb the overheads on the basis of those activities into the products. It's an advanced level technique, uh, much better than the technique of absorption costing, because absorption costing has its own limitations. So we're going to be discussing that what this activity based costing is all about. Then there is this target costing. What happens is at times you set the selling price and you deduct your desired profit from that product, so you end up getting the target cost. Now obviously your actual cost could be different to the target cost. Obviously there could be differences in the actual cost and the target cost. So here what we would be doing is we would be discussing how the cost targets are established. We would be discussing in detail that in addition to establishing the cost target, how do we actually try to make sure that we achieve those cost targets? What are the different type of actions that we undertake to make sure that we are able to achieve the cost targets? So that is all something that we would be discussing. Then there is this life cycle costing. What is this life cycle costing? So when I talk about the life cycle costing, it actually tells you that over the entire life of a product, which is from inception, which we also call initiation, till the termination of a product. From the start till the end of the product. From the start till the end of the product, whatever the stages that a product goes through, whether that be the introductory phase of a product, whether that be the growth phase of the product, whether that be the decline phase of the product, whatsoever that phase is, all of the costs that are incurred from the start till the end that you get over with the product, all those costs are compiled. They are allocated to the number of products, number of units manufactured over the entire life cycle of that product, and you end up getting the cost per unit. So that's what the life cycle costing is, helps you track all the costs associated with the product during its whole life and allocate that cost to the products instead of just allocating the the cost of a specific production period or the growth period. You actually capture information during the whole life cycle and incorporate it. Then there is this throughput accounting. What is this throughput? The concept of throughput is about output. Throughput is about output. Because you see what happens is it's a different type of a technique that focuses upon a method where only the material is treated as a variable cost of an organization. And what we try to do is that we try to achieve the throughput. The concept of throughput is sales minus direct material cost. So you end up getting the throughput. Throughput is output. Throughput is the additional benefit that you get, is the return that you get after deducting the material cost. Throughput accounting is a technique that only considers the material cost as the variable cost. The rest of the costs are fixed costs. That's what throughput accounting actually assumes. Now when we talk about the throughput accounting, so what exactly are we going to be doing with respect to throughput accounting? We're going to be discussing what the concept of throughput is, what are the different type of ratios the throughput accounting advocates, and how do you actually implement the throughput accounting in an organization. So we're going to be discussing that. Lastly, there is this environmental accounting. And what is this environmental accounting? So see, an organization would do a lot of things, a lot of activities to protect the environment. Now, what are those different type of activities that you would do as an organization to protect the environment? You would go for the environmental cleanup. You would actually reduce your emissions. You would treat your waste, etc., etc. There are multiple type of things that you do as an organization in order to make sure that you ultimately protect the environment. So this environmental management accounting is one of those techniques that helps you capture all of the costs that you incur in order to protect, in order to preserve, in order to ensure that the environment remains intact. So the activities that you do as an organization just to make sure that the environment remains intact are going to be considered as environmental are going to be considered as environmental costs. So under the environmental accounting, what we do is that we capture all environment related costs, and what we do is that uh, we ultimately uh, include those costs into the product cost so that the pricing is done in a proper manner. Now, so we're going to be discussing this in detail also. Next, you have got decision making techniques, and you could see that there are different type of decision making techniques that are actually existing in here. What are those different type of decision making techniques? If I could just tell you. So amongst these techniques are, you've got the relevant cost analysis, the CVP analysis, limiting factor, make or buy. You have dealt with almost everything in the past at the MA level, but again, you have not dealt with everything. This is something which is totally new. This is something which is totally new. The rest of the things you have already seen at the management accounting level. So we're going to be discussing that the different type of decisions that the organization has to make, whether that be a decision related to pricing of a product, whether that be decision related to the volume, whether that be decision related to allocation of resources to the different products, whether that could be a decision pertaining to outsourcing, whether that could be dealing with the risks and uncertainty while you take a decision. So there are different type of things that would possibly happen. So as an organization, what you need to do is that you need to make sure that you take decisions, that what would be the price of my product X, what would be the price of my product Y, what is going to be the volume of product X that I'm going to manufacture, what is going to be the volume of product Y that I'm going to manufacture, how would I allocate the limited labor hours to the different products, how would I allocate the limited machine capacity to the different products, is there a reason for me to product this product Z, should I not outsource this product? Okay, I'm facing a uncertainty. My demand may be there. The demand may not be there. I may run into losses. I may not run into losses. How many, what type of product should I manufacture? What amount of resources should I allocate, etc., etc., etc. There could be different type of things that could happen. So when it comes to this decision making techniques, it is actually going to be that you would be incorporating, you would be making sure, that you are able to take decisions pertaining to the different aspect that the organization faces. So it's an amazing area. You would love to study this area and you would enjoy this area when we are going to go through it. Next, there's this budgeting and the control. Now, if I talk about the budgeting and control, you would have a very good idea that what budgeting is all about. So when I talk about the budget, these two chapters, these two topics, they're actually about the different type of budgets. That what are the different type of budgets? How does an organization sets budget? What are the factors that the organization has to keep in mind when setting the budget? Now, so if there is a different type of activities that the organization has to undertake while setting the budget. So in this specific area, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be discussing the different type of budgets, what a fixed budget is, what a flexible budget is, what a rolling budget is, what an incremental budget is, what type of budget setting things that you could keep in mind, what type of different type of budget setting approaches that you can have in mind. So these are multiple things that we are going to be covering. The next thing is there are going to be these standard costing and variances details. Now, when we talk about the variances details, let's try to understand this. The concept of having variances. You know that what a variance is. It's the difference between the actual versus budgeted. The difference between the actual and the budgeted is considered to be variance. And there could be favorable variance, there could be adverse variance. There could be a favorable variance, there could be an adverse variance. Favorable variance is where it is beneficial for the organization. The adverse variance is where it could be loss making for the organization. So we would be calculating the variances for the material, we would be calculating the variances for the sales, etc., etc. These are the variances that we would be talking about. In addition to this, there are going to be the additional variances, which includes the planning and the operational variances and the performance analysis. Like at times the variances could be because of the manager's negligence, and at times the variances could be because of the circumstances. At times the variances could be because of the managerial's negligence. At times it could be because of the circumstances. Like for example, right now a Russia-Ukraine war has started. The Russia-Ukraine war has got severe impact upon the globe. Now what are those severe impact? There used to be amongst the different things that I know, obviously there could be many things, but Ukraine was one of the major global exporter of wheat. It was the major global exporter of canola seeds. Russia had a very big export of oil. The steels were exported out of Russia and the Ukraine. Now, as a result of this entire war that has taken place, the result is that all the ports of the Ukraine from which the wheat was exported, all the ports of Ukraine from which these canola seeds were exported, those ports have been captured by the Russian forces. Ukraine is unable to export, and Russia has got sanctions. You cannot buy from Russia, except that you have actually decided to go against US. Otherwise, you cannot buy from Russia. So resultingly, a major part of the world, which is an ally of US, who is working with NATO and who is working with US, is unable to buy from Russia unless and until it's a necessity. Like in the case of Germany, in the case of Poland, in the case of other several different European countries, they've got no other option except to buy the gas from Russia, or else they're gonna be chilled to death. So they don't have any other option except that they got to buy, and they have to pay in ruble. But anyways, coming back to it. These are the circumstances, these are the global circumstances that have changed, and they have had an impact upon organizations' performance. The crude oil, which went down to almost $0 in the in the COVID period because no one was willing to buy crude oil is now touching more than $127. So what is this? That means the crude oil, the global prices of petrol, they have gone up. The global fuel prices have gone up. The fuel has never been as expensive as it has been right now in the US and in many parts of the world, just because that the crude oil prices have gone up significantly up, and that is the major reason is Russia Ukraine war. Major reason is the sanctions imposed on Russia. So these are the circumstances which was beyond the control of manager, which is the beyond the control of the organization. So we would be discussing that if the variances, the adverse variances have arisen, are those adverse variances because of management? Are those adverse variances because of the circumstances? So we would actually do an analysis. We would calculate the variances into the planning and operational, that what are manager's fault, what are circumstances that have had an impact, X, Y, Z, things like that. Lastly, there is an area which is performance measurement and control. So you already have, you have studied and you would be studying the performance measurement in different syllabus. But you know this thing that you've got different type of ratio analysis. So you've got a private sector organization. Then there are these non-financial performance indicators. Like for example, customer satisfaction. Let's say for example, customer satisfaction. It's a non-financial aspect. A customer is satisfied or not may not be measured using the financial statement. It's got to be measured using, I repeat, it's got to be measured using the other non-financial information that's available. The other non-financial information that's open. So you see, just try to understand this thing. Here we are going to be discussing that how do you measure the performance of a private organization, of a public sector organization, plus what are the financial performance indicators, what are the non-financial performance indicators, etc., etc. To me, this area of this performance management is an area where the students struggle a lot, and at times it is a lot of times it's a theoretical area. It requires a lot of discussions. It requires a lot of discussion that you have to do in order to attempt the paper. Plus, lastly, there are these external considerations. So we're going to be discussing that how the performance could be measured and how the performance could be controlled, could be improved upon. That is something that we're going to do. And the last part of the syllabus is about employability and the technical skills. So you know this thing that use of the spreadsheet would actually tell you the employability and the technical skills. Okay. Now before I move forward, now let me just take you through one important aspect before I conclude the session of today. So you would actually understand this thing, that what is the approach to examination of the syllabus. How does the examiner examines the syllabus? The syllabus is examined into three sections: section A, section B, and section C. In section A, what happens is that this is a 30 mark section. Section B is also 30 mark section. Section C is 40 mark. In the section A, what happens is that you end up getting 15 OTQs, which are of 2 marks each. There are 15 OTQs, which are of 2 marks each. So that makes it 30 OTQs. These 15 OTQs could be from any syllabus area. Then you've got section B, where you would have 3 case OTQs. What do you mean by having 3 case OTQs? So there is going to be a case study available. There is going to be a case study available, and in that case study, there is going to be a case study available plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are actually going to be the different OTQs that are going to be available in that case studies. So I repeat, what would happen is that there is a case study that's going to be available. Plus there are going to be different OTQs that are available in the case studies that you will actually be getting. Now see, what happens is that, I repeat, what actually happens is that means a mini case and 5 OTQs attached to it. So that makes it 10 mark per case OTQ. So 3 case OTQs would make it 30 marks. Again, what syllabus areas? The whole syllabus. The whole syllabus. Then you have got 40 mark 2 questions which are called constructed response questions. Which are called constructed response questions. Now what are these constructed response questions? Try to understand. You would get a scenario. One of the area could be a spreadsheet. One of the areas could be the word processor based. There could be a question which could have both word and the spreadsheet also. Now what is actually going to happen with respect to this area of constructed response? So for the constructed response, what is going to happen? Try to understand. For the constructed response, what is actually going to happen is that you will be able to get a case. Plus in addition to the case, there are going to be different 2-3 requirements. And those 2-3 requirements are either going to be spreadsheet based or word processing based or a mixture of both word and the spreadsheet based. And from the exam perspective, the examiner, he is actually of the viewpoint that it's going to be the syllabus area of decision making. It's going to be the syllabus area of budgeting and control, and it's going to be the syllabus area of performance measurement, which is section C, D, and E. They are going to be examined here. So are they not going to be examined in part A? They will be. They are going to be examined in here also. So that is what it is going to be. So now, this was a brief overview about what performance management is all about. Now, final conclusion is that how exactly am I going to be teaching this course? So let me just give you a bit of an idea. I generally teach on an online blended mode. Now, what do we mean by online blended mode? When you actually get registered with us, what happens is that there is actually a web portal of our organization where you get access to the lectures. Plus, there is a planner that you get that how exactly should you be going through the lectures, when to do which lecture, etc., etc. Plus, there are different type of assignments that are also made available to people through the platform, and there is a deadline for submitting the assignment. There is a certain deadline for submitting the assignment, and you get a response for that assignment, that where have you gone wrong, what was done correctly, etc., etc. In addition to this, there is a WhatsApp group where I am communicating with you people, or where my teaching assistants are communicating with you people. Plus, in addition to this, what actually happens is that in addition to this, I actually conduct the revision sessions which are live in the last month before the exam. They are usually spanning over 3 to 5 days. Plus, in addition to this, we try to do a weekly live class, and that weekly live class covers nothing except for the queries pertaining to the agenda that has been shared to you in advance. Like if I would tell you that come up with this topic, so you have to come up by going through that specific topic, and you would come up and you would ask questions to me, and those questions would actually be answered in the live classes. That is something that's going to happen. So this is the approach, this is the strategy that we adopt, and I'm actually there to help you. I'm there to support you. It's you who has to input the efforts on your part also. If you don't study, if you don't take things seriously, you may not be able to succeed. To me, PM, the performance management, is one of the most difficult papers in the entire fundamental levels, and it requires the examiner also surprises you a lot. So it requires you to read through the books. It requires you to do ample amount of practice and most importantly to understand the concepts. So um, by this, I'm actually going to conclude my session today, and I'm going to continue further in the next class where I am going to be taking you people through the different aspects of the syllabus performance management. So I hope that you enjoyed the session, and let's actually continue studying more about this APM over the period of next 3 months. Thank you.